Welcome back to Morning Joy, where truth matters. I'm your host, Keith Downey, and today we have the pleasure of speaking with Mark Brumley, the President of Ignatius Press, one of the leading Catholic publishing houses. Mark has been instrumental in bringing many thought-provoking and inspiring books to readers, and he's here to talk to us all about Dr. Peter Kreeft's book, his latest work, What Would Socrates Say? Mark, good morning, and thanks for joining us.
Good morning to you.
Yeah, thanks once again for joining us. Now, would you mind sharing with us the main premise of Dr. Peter Kreeft's new book, What Would Socrates Say?
Well, Socrates was the ancient Greek philosopher, and Peter has used him many times. Peter, as you mentioned, is a masterful presenter of complex ideas in simple ways. He's a great popularizer in the best sense of that term, and so he uses oftentimes, not always, uses other figures, but he uses, in this case, Socrates, this great pagan Greek philosopher, to introduce basic ideas about philosophy, not in a heavy-duty sense. I mean, people sometimes, when they hear the word philosophy, eyes glaze over and they head for the door. But this is basically thinking well about what it means to be, what it means to live, our choices, how we live in life, what's right, what's wrong, how to live well together. And also, as you might suspect, because Kreeft is a Catholic, how thinking well about the world can open us up, if we're disposed to do so, can open us up to God.
So what drew Ignatius Press to publish this particular book, and what do you think makes it stand out?
Well, we're Peter Kreeft's primary publisher. He has many publishers, but we would probably publish the most of his books over the years. And so, whenever a manuscript or an idea comes from Peter, we're inclined to publish it. So, in point of fact, this book, I'm going to hold it up here. What Would Socrates Say? Is out now, but at the same time, we have another little book of his that he wrote, which is Why Does Everything Come in Threes, which also came out about the same time. So he's so prolific, you really would need a strong reason not to publish something. But this is basically a great kind of summation of so much of Peter's teaching over the years, as a philosophy teacher, as a writer. And it's one of those books that can be used in a lot of different ways. For an ordinary adult who just wants to learn more and understand more about the basic truths that philosophy deals with, but it could also be used as a introductory text, in a college or a high school setting, that sort of thing. So it's something that appealed to us because it does a good job of summarizing Peter's basic approach to things, and it's in a dialogue format. It's a conversation. He's got Socrates talking to this character Nat, so it's not like you're reading a lot of dense philosophical texts. Although even when Peter writes, more standard kind of prose, it's usually not very dense. It's very readable. But in this case, he uses the conversation format very effectively.
Yeah, I love when he uses that conversation format. It makes it easy to read. Like you said, philosophy can make anybody's eyes glaze over, like you mentioned, and doing it in this manner really helps keep the reader engaged for sure. So why do you think it's important for young people, adults to engage with philosophical ideas and thinkers like Socrates?
Well, I would say this. I say this about both philosophy and theology because I teach theology from time to time, and people say, why do you need to study theology and all of that? And I would say, with respect to both of those topics, philosophy and theology, you're going to have a philosophy, you're going to have philosophical ideas. You may not label them that way, but you're going to have them. So better to have sound ones, better to operate from sound ways of thinking and understanding the world than kind of haphazard, thrown together ideas or ways of thinking about the world. We're in a political season, and not to get political in a strict sense, but we hear a lot of argument, rhetoric, and things of that sort from various candidates for various offices. And one of the things that philosophy helps you to do is to listen critically and think well about what people are saying, weigh things up. And so that's why it's really important. In this book, What Would Socrates Say?, helps us think well about the basic issues having to do with being in the world and living and making choices in life and living well together. And how we know, is everything relative? Well, no, it isn't. And why do we know that it isn't? That sort of thing.
It's interesting you kind of bring up in the politics. You see a lot of this on social media,
Yeah.
especially X. People aren't really thinking critically. Why do you think we're in the spot where people aren't really maybe reading too much philosophy or really trying to understand the thought of thinking deeper?
That's a really good question. It's a hard question. It's probably above my pay grade, but I'll make the observation. We're bombarded with so much today. Our senses are bombarded by this technological extension of them, in the form of television and radio, mass media, advertising, now the internet, and so much comes in, and it's very easy to get distracted by that. And it's amazing to me that you can get a group of people, you could have a meme go out on social media, whether it's Facebook or X or one of the other social media outlets, and instantly people who don't know each other all experience the same thing and can be susceptible to the misleading character of things like that. And you can go down rabbit holes. There's probably no idea or point of view that you can imagine that if you wanted, you couldn't go out and find something on the internet that validates that, gives you the impression at least that there's truth or science or religion or whatever validating source you want to go to that backs the thing up. So in that kind of situation, you really do need to learn how to be a critical thinker and not just accept everything that comes your way via the internet.
It's really interesting you point that out. I've noticed on a lot of, it's either Threads or X, like sometimes I'll want to make a comment and tell someone how ridiculous they are, but I was like, okay, I'm not going to do that. And so, but the fact that it saw me click on someone's tweet or thread, it recognizes that I'm interested in this, and so then it starts showing me more related thoughts,
Right.
and so I can see how people, if they're really like focusing on a particular thought, and they start seeing that more and more, that they probably think less critically and think, well, is this true, or is this something that I'm, putting myself in a box and just it's now this echo chamber that I'm only hearing or listening to. So that's very interesting. You point that out, and people I think aren't reading as much, and I think that could also be a factor. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, people aren't reading as much. When they read, they don't read as critically as they should. And so therefore we kind of, the idea of being in a silo or siloing yourself. Well, social media often results in our being siloed, but it doesn't seem as if we are, because we have interaction with other people. We've got this information coming into us. So it seems like we're engaging with the world. We're not living in a silo someplace. But in fact, the phenomena that you described that has to do with the underlying, technological analytics and all of that keeps feeding you certain things that you've clicked on, in fact, has this effect of siloing people. So that's why reading, especially reading print books, nothing against ebooks, we publish ebooks too, but print books where you have a physical book and you're reading and you're interacting with the text, and you do what I'd like to do, which is to take notes and mark up the text, helps you learn to get out of that kind of siloed mentality.
Yeah, just stepping away from technology in general can help stop our brain from going several hundred miles a minute. So, I guess as we have a couple minutes left, what message do you really hope listeners will take away about the importance of engaging, with philosophical and theological discussions that can be found in books like Dr. Peter Kreeft's?
Well, I'd say, first of all, reading good books, reading challenging books. And by that, I don't mean, go out and buy calculus books or, learn to translate Sanskrit. Nothing wrong with those things. But reading challenging books can help us grow as persons, that we come to experience a depth of meaning in life and the ability to actually encounter truth and goodness and beauty. That can come through reading and reading well. And so I would encourage people to read more generally, but also read things like, what would Socrates say? And covering the range of things. Step out of your comfort zone. You don't have to, devote hours and hours a day to reading. Just 15 minutes a day or a half hour a day. Get a good book. Get a pencil in hand. Have a notebook, or write in the margin of the book your thoughts, and do it prayerfully. That's one of the things I think people sometimes don't realize. Catholics, whatever we're reading, whether it's fiction or nonfiction, whether it's philosophy, history, current affairs, certainly theology and spirituality, approach it prayerfully. Ask God to guide you and ask Him to help you glean from your reading whatever it is He wants you to glean.
Wow, great advice. That was incredible. Now we can find all of the books, including the one we were just talking about from Dr. Peter Kreeft, What Would Socrates Say, from Ignatius Press. Anything exciting happening in the last 10 seconds with Ignatius Press coming up?
Oh, we're releasing our Ignatius Catholic Study Bible, complete Old and New Testament. Scott Hahn and Curtis Mitch and a number of other scholars have been working on this for quarter of a century. It's coming out in a week or so people can go to their local Catholic bookstore, or they can go online and order a copy.
I've heard so many good things about some of the I have some friends who got a pre-order copy of it. Incredible. Looking forward to that. But thank you so much, Mark, for joining us. Now that is it for Morning Joy. I almost forgot the name of the show. Morning Joy, where truth matters. Now, there's two ways, there's two paths. You can stay and listen, especially if you're on the radio. Listen to the Holy Mass. If that's the case, please pray for us. We will continue to pray for you as we continue on this week. Otherwise, you should join us on social media. We're going to be doing our after-show clubhouse, where we get to debrief from the show, get to know you a little bit better, because it's all interactive. But of course, if this is us parting ways, we always like to say, God bless. Make it a joyful day. We'll see you bright and early tomorrow morning, All Hallows Eve, on Morning Joy, where truth matters, 6 a.m. Central, 7 a.m. Eastern.
This has been Morning Joy, where truth matters, hosted by Keith Downey. Take some joy with you today. Visit grnonline.com/joy to listen again, share a segment, or answer the question of the day. That's grnonline.com/joy.